Good morning, everyone. Hi, friends. How are we all doing today? Um, Today I'm probably going to do a shorter stream because I am having just family difficulties right now. Um, and I need to be able to leave the house in maybe like 20 to 30 minutes to possibly deal with stuff. Um, if anyone out there is comfortable praying for me, I'd request please pray for my grandmother right now. There's just a lot going on and stuff's really hard. But yeah, I hope you all are having a really great day. I hope you all are having a really good morning. Um, Today I was thinking of doing the trivia for Job and for Ruth. No, for Jonah and for Ruth. Sorry, someone's talking right outside the door, so I'm a little bit distracted. I'm thinking about doing the trivia for Jonah and for Ruth. Those are both very, very short, and they're also both they're also both books of the Bible that I've read really, really recently. So ideally, I would do fairly well. Sorry. I haven't had any coffee today. I wanted to go make coffee, but I woke up 25 minutes ago, so I just didn't have the time to do coffee and set up all this stuff for the stream. I also wanted to comb and well, not comb. I wanted to wash my hair and stuff, and that hasn't happened either, so I'm wearing a hat. But yeah, Jonah's actually really interesting. I think, anyone who knows me in real life probably knows that I'm very, very interested in Sheol, and I talk a lot about Sheol, and Jonah is actually a book where we get some additional insight there, because we get to see like oceans and water as a metaphor for the underworld and the afterlife, which in a way you kind of see all the way far back in First Genesis, because or the first chapter of Genesis, because like the deep and the waters there were this chaotic, non-ordered material that was sort of ordered and fashioned into our world, like the world of the living. Jonah's also really cool if you're a Christian, because it's the story of someone who spends 3 days in this dark, chaotic underworld and then returns to the land of the living to help others. So, where have I heard that one before? There's, I forget where. One of the Psalms basically has a few lines ripped like word for word from Jonah, which you don't see that in English, but you see that in Hebrew. So I was doing this Psalm study with my Hebrew teacher the last year of school before I graduated, and I remember I was reading one of the Psalms in Hebrew, and because I had read a lot of Jonah stuff in Hebrew for my just private studies on Sheol, I was like, wait a second, I've heard this. It's the part. So in my English Bible that I have with me, which I can't show you because my microphone is resting on it, I have an NIV. It says something like seaweed coils around my head, whatever. But then in the Hebrew and the way it's translated in the Psalms is just about like the coils of death surround my head, and it's in Hebrew it's much more overtly about the underworld and death and less about big scary fish in the big scary ocean. But yeah, sorry. I love rambling about stuff, but today I really do have a timetable I kind of need to stick to, so without further ado, let's do the Jonah quiz. Oh, my computer's way too loud. Give me a second. I was playing Minecraft earlier, and I like to keep Minecraft really, really loud so I can hear mobs sneaking up on me. How did the men aboard the ship determine Jonah was the one who angered God? They cast lots, which is interesting, because I think I went on this exact same rant last week, but throughout the Bible, people use forms of divination to accurately determine the will of God or accurately gain information from God. But as soon as I pull out my tarot cards today, I'm kidding, but I don't know. I could do that rant a billion times. How long would it take to walk through the city of Nineveh? I think 7 days? It's either 7 or 5, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it was 3. Oh, golly, I don't know. I'm gonna say 7. Okay. Who knows? Those were all good numbers. Those were all numbers that you see again and again and again in the Bible, so it's fair to guess any of them. What did God miraculously provide to give Jonah shade? A leafy plant, and then he killed the leafy plant with a worm. And then he was like, why do you care? You had it one day, and then you didn't have it the next day. Oh golly, I think it was either Sidon or Tyre. I have no idea. I'm gonna say this. Okay. Yeah, I don't know that. Sorry. How long did Jonah spend in the belly of the great fish? It was 3 days and 3 nights, which was an easy way to remember that. Kidding. What did the king of Nineveh decree in the city because of Jonah's prophecy? Everyone must fast and repent. Even the animals. He was like, even the animals can't have food or water. I think even the animals had to wear like sackcloth and like ashes on their brow. Like this was everyone was fasting. What did God send to destroy the leafy plant that protected Jonah? I already said this. A worm. A lot of people don't know that part of the story. I think I was like 12 or 13 when I learned that part, because in like Sunday school as a kid, they'll be like, Jonah was eaten by a whale, but then later on he came out of the whale because he decided to do what God said. And then like you get a little bit older and it's like, Jonah was eaten by the whale, and then he gets out of the whale, which it's not a whale, it's a big fish, but people at my church say whale. And then he got out of the whale, and he did what God said, even though he really didn't want to, and then he got really mad that God's plan worked out as intended. So then God gave him a tree, so he could calm down and sit in the shade. But then God destroyed the tree, and Jonah got really mad the tree was destroyed. And then God was like, if you care so much about this tree you've only had for 1 day, can you understand why I care so much about these people that I, needed your help to redeem? But, like, no one tells you that last half until you're, like, already a tween. When you're a kid, it's just like, yeah, it's a miracle. He survived in the whale. Like, that was never the point of that story. What city did God command Jonah to preach against? The great city of Nineveh. Why did God worsen the storm after the man discovered Jonah was the cause? Because they tried to return to port. How far into Nineveh did Jonah travel before prophesying to its people? I don't know. Okay. I don't even remember that being like a relevant feature of the story. Sorry, everyone. I don't know, if I do poorly today, I'm just gonna lie and be like, oh, it's because I didn't have coffee. And definitely not just because I don't know some things. Kidding, of course. What does Jonah do when he learns God might spare Nineveh? He, like, throws a temper tantrum. Okay, I don't know. None of those options were what I remember. I just remember him being a little baby about it. Who is Jonah's father? I don't know. Ruel sounds pretty good, but I think that's Miriam's father, so probably not that. Amitai, I like that, because that means my truth. And now that I say that out loud, I'm pretty sure it's Amitai, so it's, yeah. I know 2 different trans guys in real life who changed their name to Emmett, and neither of them are into, like, Hebrew or whatever. That name means truth. It's a beautiful name. I just think that's a funny thing that's happened twice to me. Whose idea was it to throw Jonah overboard to stop the storm? I think it was Jonah. I think he was like, hey, God's mad at me. Y'all don't need to die. Throw me overboard. Yeah. Again, he nobly sacrificed himself. Can we think of anywhere else in the Bible where we see that? I'm kidding. I'm not trying to go like youth Sunday school preacher mode on anyone, but also in live streaming on YouTube, you basically have your own, like, public access TV show from like the early 2000s, so I can say whatever on here. I can just go on a rant about like Jesus and Sheol, and if someone tunes in, they tuned in. That's on them. How many days did Jonah say would pass before Nineveh's destruction? I think 40. Yeah, it's always 40. I say that as if the other answers weren't also good answers, but it's always 40. What did the men on Jonah's ship do when the storm calmed? I think they offered sacrifices to God. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Well, I knew they didn't do the other 3, and that sounded right, but, like, more so than it sounding right, I knew the other 3 weren't true. What did Jonah want after the plant was destroyed? To die. He was literally like, what's the point? If I can't sit under that plant anymore, kill me. And God's like, you had that plant for one day, bruh. But you don't understand why I care about people that I created myself, like, it's a good story. I think within its full context, it's a really good story. If you're hearing this and you're like gonna teach the Bible to kids, teach this story in its full context. So I'm moving in like a little over a week now, and I keep getting these awesome opportunities for after I move, and and it's just it's bad luck, or not bad luck. It's just a bummer where it's like, hey, do you want to do this? It's like, oh, it's after I move. Hey, do you want to do that? But I'm now at my church. There's an opportunity for anyone to become a Sunday school teacher. If anyone has never been a Sunday school teacher before and they want to try it out, it's not like a trial thing, but like they have a few days that they don't have anyone booked, so you could try it out then, and then if you like it, you could become a full-time thing, because right now we don't have enough Sunday school teachers. And like if I was not moving, I would want to go be a Sunday school teacher for the kids, but I'm moving. What did God do to stop Jonah from fleeing on a ship? He sent a great storm. How many people does God say are in the city of Nineveh? I don't know. I'm just going to pick this. Okay. What did Jonah do while in the belly of the great fish? I think he prayed for 3 days. What did everyone in Nineveh change into when they heard Jonah's prophecy? Sackcloth, which I already talked about this. Yay. 15 out of 20. Not that bad. I got 3/4. I got 75% correct, which is better than my batting average of 66%. Alrighty, let's do Ruth now, and then I'm gonna head out because dealing with a lot of stuff. Again, please pray for me. Please pray for my grandmother. Here it is. Oh yeah, I just want to say I love the book of Ruth. I think I brought this up last time because, one, it kind of shows like the story of an early convert. Two, it shows that important figures like King David and like Jesus, whatever, were converts. They were grafted in. They were, whatever. So like that, as someone, for me, who, like I'm a Gentile, if you read, I think it was Paul's letter to the Corinthians, it's like I'm the wild olive that's grafted into the domesticated olive. Like, just as someone who doesn't have a lot of the ties to this religion that other people have, it's really significant to me to come across other people like that, especially when it's someone who is an ancestor of Jesus or an ancestor of King David. Additionally, Ruth was a Moabite, and the Moabites were the descendants of Lot, because like one of Lot's sons, didn't he have Moab and Ben Ami as sons? And what's interesting is like Lot and Abraham were brothers, and they were clearly worshiping the same God. They were on good terms with one another. They, wanted to help one another, rescue one another. But then later on, you hear about the Israelites fighting the Moabites, and it's like, this is your family, and you've turned against them. This is your family, and they've been divided. So any story where there's not a clear division, and they sort of come back together like this, I see it as kind of just restoring a previous state that there already was. So it's like looking at Naomi and Ruth's relationship. It's like this is a restoration of Abraham and Lot's relationship, which I really like. Sorry if that was a weird rant. That's not anything I've been told. That's just how I feel. So that's why it probably sounded clunky and possibly is not theologically sound. Who is Naomi's first husband? This probably? I don't know. Yay! I just picked the one that looked familiar that wasn't Boaz. What convinced Orpah to go back to her mother's home? Naomi could not provide her a husband. Because Naomi was like, all my sons are dead. Let's say I get married today and get pregnant today. Would you wait until the kid I give birth to in 9 months is a grown adult who you could marry? It's like, good point. like you're not gonna get a husband through her. And then Ruth did, sort of, because through Orpah's family redeemer protector Boaz, she got a husband. So I I guess Naomi was wrong that you couldn't get a husband through her. What did Boaz acquire in order to have legal right to Ruth as his wife? It was her property. The property of her father. Oh, I guess it was her in-law. Oh, yeah, in-law. Fiddle. Yeah, because her father would have been a Moabite. I just clicked the wrong thing. It would have been her in-law's property because it would have been her husband's property. I I knew the answer to that one. I just got it wrong. Why did Elimelech take his family to live in the country of Moab? I think famine in Israel. Yeah. What was happening in Bethlehem as Mara and Ruth arrived? It's one of these two. I forget if it's wheat or barley. I'm going to say barley. Okay, cool. I remembered. Or it was a lucky guess. We'll never know. Why did Boaz consider a great kindness that Ruth laid down at his feet? Well, this is the answer. What I am going to say is, in some books of the Bible, feet, regel, is a euphemism for something else. And if it's a euphemism here, I think it would be a kindness in general, because people like that sort of thing. I'm sorry, yeah, and now I'm probably immediately proving why I shouldn't be a Sunday school teacher. How does the book of Ruth end? With the genealogy, actually. It's like, and Ruth was the mother of this guy, who was the father of this guy, blah, 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 who was the father of King David. And again, because we're Christian, because I'm Christian, King David is the ancestor of Jesus, so Ruth is the ancestor of Jesus, a Moabite convert. Which is, there's room for everyone. How many sons did Naomi have? I think she had 2. Right? And then they both died. Maybe 3. I'm going to say 2. Okay. What are the names of Naomi's daughter-in-law? It's Orpah and Ruth. In whose field did Ruth glean behind the harvesters? Boaz. What did Ruth do with the barley she gathered from Boaz's field? She ground it. I thought she did. I thought I remembered her talking about doing, or like reading about her doing that. What did Boaz promise Ruth when she lay down at his feet? That he would redeem her if her guardian didn't. Maybe she ground it and then she sold it, and they wanted me to say sold it because like that's how she was providing for herself and Mara/Naomi, but like I think she ground it though. Who is a descendant of Ruth's son Obed? David. The person I won't shut up about, yeah. What were the names of Naomi's sons? So I thought Elimelech was one of them, but Boaz isn't the other one. So I'm just gonna pick this. Okay. Maybe Elimelech was the father-in-law? I'm really tired. I know I joked like, oh, I'm not going to do the coffee thing, but like honestly, I think I might be getting some of this wrong just because I'm mentally still asleep and I'm tired. But yeah, I guess it could be, yeah, it was probably like Naomi and Elimelech had those 2. Where did Naomi urge her daughters-in-law to go after their husbands died? I think to their mother's home. Because isn't it like within the law of this time that like once you get married, unless you're under a certain age, you don't really return to being like under your father's care when you're no longer married? So with the mothers though, the mothers would possibly need to be cared for, so then these 2 women could go care for their mothers in their old age. Yeah. So I know this is different because the Talmud is like a commentary on you know, the Bible, but in there they talk about law, about like if you get married and then your husband dies, are you your father's responsibility again? And it's based on the age you were when you got married and the age you were when your spouse dies. Which obviously, that's a commentary that's much centuries after this was written, etc. But that commentary was likely on laws that was written elsewhere in the Bible, just expanding upon it for the modern day, modern to the time it was written, of course. And the original laws they were commenting on would have been at play during this time period, this story. What meal did Ruth first share with Boaz? I think it was bread dipped in wine vinegar. So I remember reading that and thinking that sounds good. When Boaz awoke in the night and found a woman lying at his feet, what did he say? I think he said, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm Ruth." What caused the guardian redeemer to withdraw his agreement to buy Elimelech's land? Acquiring Ruth endangered his estate, and I don't understand how it does so. I made a note in my Bible to look up how that would be the case, and I still haven't. But I don't understand. No one said anything in chat today, so I don't think anyone's here. But if anyone is here and you know the answer, please let me know in chat why acquiring Ruth would jeopardize the estate. What people did Elimelech and his family belong to? I think they're from Bethlehem. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because I remember reading that, and I'm like, that's another connection between this story and Jesus. Let's go. How did Naomi's daughters-in-law respond when she urged them to return home? I think they wept. Yeah. What did Boaz command his harvesters to do for Ruth? He told them to just leave additional stuff out for her. So, typically, you can see this in the law in... Oh golly, I don't know if it was like Exodus, Leviticus, or Numbers. I'm sorry, I'm really tired. One of those three. If you can see in the law, I think it's near a lot of the Jubilee laws, but anyway, it's like within other laws about providing for the poor and like wealth distribution, is you're not supposed to harvest the corners of your field. You're supposed to leave those for the poor to harvest from. And obviously, depending on how generous or non-generous you are, you can decide what the corner is. Like if you have a square, you can decide, is this the corner or is this the corner, Anyway, in addition to that, they say if you drop anything you're harvesting, you can't pick it back up. You have to leave it there for the poor. So back then they had a better safety net, food-wise and money-wise than we have today, because people could just pick up dropped harvestables, eat them themselves or sell them, and then use the money to acquire other stuff they needed. But anyway, in Boaz commanding the harvesters to pull out stalks from their bundles and just leave them on the ground, they would then be breaking the law to go pick them back up. And it would not be breaking any sort of law for Ruth or for any other, poor gleaner to come and glean and just pick all that up from the ground. So this was very kind of him to do. And if you understand law stuff, it's yeah, that's a good way to guarantee she's provided for. When did Ruth get up to leave after spending the night on Boaz's feet? Which again, on Boaz's feet, it could be a euphemism. It was before anyone could be recognized. What did the guardian redeemer give to Boaz as a sign of their legal agreement? His sandal. They said that in this time, taking off your sandal and giving it to someone was the sign of finalizing a deal with another person. What happened to Elimelech? I think he died. Yeah. That's probably why I was thinking 3 earlier. I was thinking about how Naomi's husband died and our 2 sons died. So that was 3 dead men. What did Naomi advise Ruth to do after gleaning in Boaz's field? I think it was go with the women who work for him. I don't. Yeah. Where did Boaz tell Ruth to drink from if she became thirsty? Um, Water jars the men filled. Where did Boaz meet with the other guardian redeemer and 10 of the town elders? I don't remember. I think it could have been the marketplace, and it could have been like the town gate. I'm gonna say the marketplace. All right. How long did Naomi live in the land of Moab with her 2 sons and their wives? Like 7? I don't know. Okay. I honestly just picked that because that's a number that makes sense to me. Why did Ruth find favor in Boaz's eyes? It was one of these 2. I think it's for her dedication to the Lord, but it also was... I know women of the town knew she was in good character because of how she cared for her mother-in-law. Okay, then I guess that's also how Boaz knew, so should have picked the other answer. What did Boaz give to Ruth after she lay at his feet? I forget how many measures. He told her to open up her shawl, and then he just filled her shawl all the way with barley. So it's like however many measures of barley a shawl would hold. I have no idea. What did Naomi change her name to when she returned to Bethlehem? It's Mara. Because I think Naomi has something to do with happiness. I forget what. But Mara means bitter. Mar means bitter, and there's waters. The waters that they said tasted like wormwood. Weren't those called Mara as well? Before I think Moses threw a hyssop branch into them. It doesn't matter, but Mara is a term used throughout the Bible that you should be familiar with. It's Hebrew for bitter. After Boaz found a place to lie down on the threshing floor, what did Ruth do? She uncovered his feet and lay on them. How much barley did Ruth gather from Boaz's field? I don't know. What was the name of Ruth's son? This looks right. Oh, so does this. I'm gonna say this. Yay! Last second changed it. What did Boaz say to Ruth as she left the threshing floor? I think it's no one can know a woman came here. Alrighty, 28 out of 35. I'm going to do the math to figure out what that is. I will say that one of them, I kind of knew the answer and I clicked the wrong one. We can argue I did that twice, but with that one, I really didn't know. Where it's like, I knew that was how the women felt. Okay, so this is 80%. That's, better than 75, so this is a pretty good one. Well, pretty soon I'm going to have to go. It's only been about 30 minutes, but that was always kind of my intention, because I had to leave. As you can see, I've gotten 0 fully correct. I don't know what I'll do next time. I've read all 3 letters of John, and combined there's very few questions there, so we could do like the 3 of those plus something else. So like maybe we could do like the 3 letters of John. I'm currently reading Job, so we could do like the 3 letters of John and Job. I don't know. I have a lot of just prophets and letters, and I'm a little bit worried for those because I'm just much better with narratives. I know I need to like read through the Gospels. I have difficulty reading through them often because those are stuff that I'm constantly reading out of order. Where you're getting stories from the Gospels in church once a week, just in any order from any gospel, whatever. And then very often I'm looking up specific stories from the Gospels to find connections to other things that I am reading like in order. So then when I sit down to read them in order, it'll be a lot of like, here's something I've read like 4 times in the last 2 months. So it kind of makes me like check out mentally, and then I read something that like I've just never heard or something. And then I have to like reread it and like lock in and be like, what? Well, like, why haven't I heard of this? Or like, what does this relate to? Like, it's an entirely new idea. So it's, I'm just having difficulty like getting through those. I started reading the book of Job the other day, and then a bunch of chaotic stuff happened, so I've not made a lot of progress in it, and I haven't finished it. But yeah, next week I'll work out something, and then the Monday after that I probably won't be streaming because I'm probably still going to be moving into my new place. So thank you so much for tuning in. I don't think anyone watched this. No one said anything in chat. Um, but I guess if you watch this after the fact, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Um, I love you. God loves you. Um, not to like beg, but please pray for me. And I'll see you next week. Bye.